Hey there, and welcome to Secrets of the Ancients. If you're curious about lost civilizations, hidden treasures, and the mysteries of the past, you're in the right place. Don't forget to follow us so you won't miss this episode or any of our future deep dives into history.
Go on, give us a hand, subscribe, and drop a comment below. It really helps us bring you more of these stories, mate.
Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to follow Secrets of the Ancients and stay tuned for more adventures. Remember, subscribe, like, and comment to support our channel. We appreciate you listening. Unlike many other ancient Egyptian tombs, King Tutankhamun's tomb stayed hidden and untouched by looters for 3,000 years.
One reason is that it was smaller than average and tucked away in a spot called the Valley of the Kings. By the time they found Tutankhamun's resting place, the area had already been heavily explored. The entrance had been completely buried under debris from the construction of a nearby tomb, which probably helped keep it secret. There were also no markings or inscriptions on the outside. Time itself played a big part in keeping the tomb in such incredible condition until the 1920s, when a man named Howard Carter finally managed to enter it.
But was Carter really the great hero everyone thinks?
Some recent findings suggest he might have been more cunning than people realized. People used to believe Carter wasn't just some treasure hunter, but a real archaeologist. Even before finding Tutankhamun, he'd been on a relentless mission to uncover Egyptian artifacts. His passion for these objects started when he was a child, and he soon began sketching carvings and inscriptions found in ancient tombs. After discovering Tutankhamun's remains, Carter spent a decade documenting and handling all kinds of treasures, like golden thrones, chariots and statues, from the tomb and shipping them up the Nile to the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Well, that was the official story, at least.
New evidence suggests that not everything actually made it to the Egyptian authorities. Apparently, Carter had a private rule of 10 for them, one for me. In 1922, he sent a letter to his friend Sir Alan Gardner, a linguist, asking for advice about the tomb he'd found. Then, in another letter from 1934, Gardner thanked Carter for sending him an amulet as a gift. Carter insisted it hadn't come from Tutankhamun's tomb, but it clearly had. Even the British director of the Egyptian Museum at the time suspected Carter was secretly taking artifacts, but couldn't prove it. Gardner compared the amulet Carter had given him to others from the tomb, and they matched perfectly. Gardner felt terrible about being put in this awkward position and complained to Carter in another letter. But in the end, he chose to stay loyal and simply advised Carter to return the stolen items to Cairo.
In 1947, a man named Alfred Lucas, who had worked with Carter, published a piece in a Cairo journal claiming that Carter had secretly broken into the burial chamber himself, then sealed it back up before the official opening. Why would he do that? The theory is that Carter and his team wanted to get their hands on some of the treasures before anyone else could. They couldn't sell these items while they were still alive without huge risk, but later on they were auctioned off discreetly. Though Carter never openly admitted or denied any wrongdoing, the Egyptian government eventually banned him from the tomb for a while to prevent further mysterious disappearances.
Some people linked these alleged thefts to the so-called Curse of King Tut. According to the legend, anyone who disturbed the boy king's tomb would suffer terrible misfortune.
It wasn't quite like a mummy coming to life, but there were stories of several people involved dying unexpectedly. The most famous case was Lord Carnarvon, the British aristocrat who financed the search for the tomb. He died about a year after its opening. While people called it mysterious, he'd actually been in poor health before arriving in Cairo and died from a fairly common illness.
Overall, there were many people connected to the tomb's discovery: guards, archaeologists, assistants, and naturally some died within a few years. But statistically, this isn't surprising. In fact, those supposedly cursed lived an average of more than 20 years after the tomb was opened. Even Carnarvon's daughter lived into the 1980s, about 50 years later. Howard Carter himself lived until 1939, 16 years after the big discovery. Some have suggested the curse was nothing more than clever PR. When the tomb was found, Carter reportedly wanted to keep reporters away, so the idea of a curse may have been used to scare them off.
So what exactly was stolen from King Tut's tomb? Some jewelry, for a start. A French researcher studied old photographs from the 1920s and compared them to items in museums and auction catalogs. He discovered a few pieces of Tut's jewelry had surfaced elsewhere. For instance, Tut had a pectoral collar on his chest that was broken into pieces. Some fragments ended up in the Nelson Atkins Museum in Missouri, while other parts were made into a necklace that someone tried, unsuccessfully, to sell in 2015. The museum itself acknowledges this on its website. Then there was part of Tut's headdress. Some beads believed to have been taken by Carter, and later turned into a necklace now displayed at the St. Louis Art Museum. Another lavish collar made from glazed ceramic charms spent time at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, but was thankfully returned to Egypt over a decade ago.
Aside from these missing items, Tutankhamun's tomb still offered incredible artifacts that taught us a lot about ancient Egyptian life. For example, the famous golden burial mask, about 21 inches tall, set with semi-precious stones and glass paste, weighing roughly 22 pounds, showing the boy pharaoh with a long beard and a headpiece featuring a cobra and a vulture. Inscribed on the back was a spell from an ancient Egyptian spiritual text meant to help him in the afterlife.
They also found 4 board games in his tomb, some made of ivory, and even a pair of golden sandals that probably were more symbolic than practical. He may never have worn them in real life. Interestingly, Tut seems to have been something of a style icon. Archaeologists discovered a mannequin in his tomb that he used to drape and choose his clothes and jewellery. He also apparently enjoyed music. 2 trumpets found in the tomb were played in a BBC broadcast in 1939, although they're now too fragile to handle.
Nearby, archaeologists discovered other tombs, with about a dozen wooden coffins dating back some 3,600 years, which help paint a picture of what life might have looked like in ancient Egypt. For instance, they found a beautifully made necklace featuring 30 amethyst beads, 2 agate beads, and a hippo-shaped amulet, probably quite the fashion statement back then. They also uncovered 2 copper mirrors, one with a lotus-shaped handle and the other decorated with Hathor, the Egyptian goddess of the sky, fertility, and love.
Recent excavations in the area revealed another major discovery: parts of Queen Hatshepsut's Valley Temple, unseen for thousands of years. Hatshepsut was one of the few women to rule Egypt as a pharaoh, known for her courage and wisdom. Her hidden temple opens a window onto a time of power, intrigue, and spiritual devotion. Over 1,000 beautifully carved stone blocks were found at the site. Another nearby tomb belonged to the overseer of Queen Tedisheret's palace, a man named Jehudi Mez. It seems Hatshepsut had more tombs carved into the rock rather than built as pyramids, reflecting different ideas about protecting the soul after death.
Experts recovered all sorts of objects from the site: clay mummy masks, winged scarab amulets, and other items. Sadly, over the centuries, looters found the site before archaeologists did, which means many more treasures were probably lost forever. They left behind some valuable items, but they also left amazing things for researchers to find, like pottery used to serve bread and meat, as well as archers' bows that connect the tomb owners to the Egyptian army.
Meanwhile, protecting the soul was considered even more important than you might think, especially if you're wandering around Luxor searching for ancient secrets.
You're not afraid of King Tut's curse, right? Let me tell you what happened to those who weren't, but promise to take it with a grain of salt.
For years, Egyptologists, especially those who believed in the supernatural, were convinced there really was a troubling curse surrounding the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. This idea grew from the strange and untimely deaths of several of the workers who uncovered the tomb in 1922, deaths that seemed to have no logical explanation. It was easier to blame something supernatural and avoid messy questions.
But it turns out it probably wasn't a curse at all. The real cause was likely radiation. Now you might wonder, where did the radiation come from after all this time? Radioactivity was discovered in the 19th century, and while the ancient Egyptians didn't have radium lying around to make Tut's tomb glow, there's another explanation. There may have been toxic waste left inside, with dangerous levels of radiation from uranium and other hazardous materials trapped inside the tomb for over 3,000 years. It's said the burial chamber in Tutankhamun's tomb has such high radiation that anyone stepping inside could get a deadly dose of radiation sickness, or a fatal disease that doctors couldn't cure. And funnily enough, you could get a similar level of radioactivity if you forgot rotting leftovers in your fridge for a month. But Tut's tomb wasn't the only place with this problem.
Finding ancient Egyptian artifacts can be rewarding, but also risky, because unusually high radiation levels have been detected in other Old Kingdom tombs across Egypt. Radiation counters even picked up high readings near the pyramids of Giza and traces of radon gas, which is radioactive.
Interestingly, experts think the builders of these ancient tombs knew about these dangers. Many tomb walls have chilling warnings carved into them. One inscription ominously declared, "Those who break this tomb will meet their end from a disease no doctor can diagnose." Other warnings like forbidden because of evil spirits only fueled fears that real curses haunted these ancient sites.
These warnings have fascinated archaeologists for ages, but the fear spiked about 100 years ago after the mysterious death of Lord Carnarvon, who funded the excavation of Tut's tomb in 1922. He's said to have explored the treasure-filled rooms with several other people. Arthur Weigel, another British Egyptologist present at the tomb's opening and often credited with starting the curse legend, died young too, in his 50s in 1934. His death might have been linked to radiation exposure.
In total, 6 out of the 26 people who were there when the tomb was first opened died within 10 years. For various reasons, not just radiation. Some died from suffocation, strokes, heart failure, pneumonia, and even poisoning. Pretty grim, right? There was one man who opened the tomb and somehow managed to escape the famous curse, Howard Carter, or so it seemed. Some people pointed to his survival as proof that the curse wasn't real.
After excavating the tomb, Carter wrote several books about it and shifted from archaeology into dealing artifacts to different museums. Though he avoided death or illness, rumors spread that the curse affected him in other ways.
One story linked him to Lord Carnarvon's daughter, Evelyn. Some said he loved her madly, but she married someone else, so Carter chose to stay single. Others claimed they had an affair while she was in Egypt, which ended when her father died, and she left the country forever. But there isn't much evidence for these stories.
Evelyn was only 6 years old when they first met, and they remained friends until Carter's death. She was even one of the few people at his funeral but denied any romantic relationship, saying they weren't that close.
About a year after Tut's tomb was discovered, Evelyn married a politician named Sir Brograve Beauchamp and had a daughter. In the same year, Beauchamp toured the tomb with his parents, guided by Carter himself. Carter never married, and aside from the rumors about Evelyn, he had no known romantic relationships.
While the curse adds drama to his story, Carter's tendency to keep his distance from people was clear long before he opened the tomb. He was known to be reserved and not very social. In 1939, after struggling with a serious illness, Carter died at last.
Meanwhile, let's jump to another ancient site, Göbekli Tepe. Its stone structures paved the way for the rise of complex societies, suggesting that social and cultural change might have happened before large-scale farming.
Archaeologist Klaus Schmidt had a fascinating theory that Göbekli Tepe was a special burial ground where people left their loved ones, decorating the site with elaborate statues and symbols representing gods and the spirit world. The idea that it might have served as a sacred place adds another layer to its mystery.
Though its true purpose might always remain unknown, Schmidt's insights invite us to think about the deep connections between life, death, and the respect ancient hunter-gatherers might have had for their ancestors. Now let's talk about the real stars of the site. The massive T-shaped pillars. These mysterious structures, some rising up to 20 feet, probably represented stylized human figures.
But one figure stands out, a three-dimensional carving of a lion. Why? Because it hints that lions roamed Anatolia during the Neolithic era. The stones are arranged in circles, each circle with two large T-shaped pillars in the center surrounded by smaller pillars facing inward. These huge pillars weigh between 7 and 10 tons each.
Some pillars are plain, while others are decorated with intricate carvings of animals like foxes, scorpions, and vultures that seem to come alive on the stone. It isn't just animals. Some pillars also feature abstract shapes, human figures, and even carved belts.
One pillar stands out as if it's the site's rock star. It seems to depict a comet striking the Earth during a period known as the Younger Dryas, about 12,000 years ago. Earlier studies of Greenland ice cores hinted at this theory, and the Göbekli Tepe carvings support it. The carvings are almost like an ancient comic strip, showing a headless human figure and other symbols.
Researchers analyzed the images with computer models and linked them to constellations, suggesting the temple might have functioned as an ancient observatory. Archaeologists have been digging at Göbekli Tepe since the mid-1990s, peeling back layers of history and revealing complex connections between art, religion, and society. They plan to keep excavating for the next 150 years. Who knows what else they'll find?
Although people once thought Göbekli Tepe was purely ceremonial because there was no water nearby, experts now believe it could have supported semi-settled communities. Instead of imagining people wandering constantly, it might have been home to a group who stayed in the area most of the time.
Göbekli Tepe isn't just a single temple, but a stunning complex of over 20 ancient buildings. Deeper excavations reveal unique designs. Each structure has two main central pillars and smaller walls and features around them. Even more astonishing, The area contains over 200 obelisks, tall, narrow stone monuments.
And finally, let's touch on the legendary lost oasis of Zerzura. It's said to lie hidden somewhere deep in the Sahara Desert. Finding it could mean unimaginable wealth and countless secrets.
According to a mysterious 15th century Arabic guide, the key to entering the city lies in the beak of a carved bird on its gate. Zerzura might not be as famous as Machu Picchu or the pyramids, but that only makes it more mysterious.
Settings. Finally, at the end of the video, add a closing message thanking viewers for listening and encouraging them to follow Secrets of the Ancients and watch future videos.